Hey, it's Mike here, and today Russell Brand says he is no longer vegan. You know I'm fascinated by these ex-vegan cases. I think there's always lessons to learn. In this case, he did not give us a ton of information to go on, but we can go through some of his background, his origin story, and some sort of major, somewhat concerning shifts that he's had lately. So in this sense, this might be more of a prediction video or a part one video, which maybe we'll be able to follow up with if he makes more of a detailed explanation. But anyway, here he is in a very recent TikTok within the last 24 hours as I'm recording this.
Changed quite a lot. A little while ago, I was a vegan, living a simple life in Grays, Essex. Now I'm eating steak at Mar-a-Lago. Funny how the world changes.
Of course, that is Trump's estate, and they did sit him next to Mel Gibson and Tucker Carlson on some type of panel where they did spell his name wrong, a detail I had to mention. But the point is, he went from headlining UK Vegan Campout in 2021 to eating steak at Mar-a-Lago in late 2024. So we're gonna unpack what happened here. Let's go. And for those that don't know who Russell Brand is, he's called a comedian. He seems to just be this general personality now who's putting out all these ideas. I found out about him from dating Katy Perry years back, and I even met him. I'll talk about that later on. So yeah, this is another celebrity ex-vegan video, and it's at the point where I'm just constantly like, if I see a vegan celebrity, I'm like, you know, what's really gonna happen here? I don't know what the deal is. The actual vegans I know in real life that aren't famous seem to stay vegan, but the famous or celebrity ones, they don't. And the same goes for, you know, plant-based celebrities who say that they're vegan who aren't anyway. This is a case where he didn't just quit right there on the spot at Mar-a-Lago. No, it appears at least a week before he mentioned on an interview with carnivore dieter and folate deficiency sufferer from lack of vegetables, Michaela Fuller, formerly Peterson.
I've gone from being vegan to being like I'm eating meat and eating meat quite a lot.
And yeah, I have a whole video responding to Michaela Peterson's TED Talk that was removed because it just had so much good information it couldn't be released, not because it was just riddled with like pseudo-scientific and anecdotal claims. But yeah, she's Jordan Peterson's daughter. She coined the lion diet, or some have called it the lying diet because of how many bogus claims she's made. That's a topic for another time. And you might be wondering, how did he end up this regular guest on Michaela Peterson's podcast, which seems to be, you know, the opposite of the ideology that he was pushing before in the past. We're going to get to that, but first we got to rewind to, you know, what made Russell Brand even change his diet? Well, it goes back to him being 14 years old, listening to the Smiths and their Meat is Murder album, and learning about factory farming in general, and going vegetarian. And well, he did cite Simon Amstell's movie Carnage, which envisions a fully vegan world 50 years in the future, looking back on the atrocities they committed to animals. Interesting think piece, but mainly he points to what the health as the motivator, so a original health motivation.
I watched the documentary called What the Health. Have you seen it?
And this is where the lines are a little muddy as to whether somebody was like ethically vegan or not. A lot of times we can point to people saying that they're on a vegan diet, but clearly they're basically just on a plant-based weight loss diet. Very different situation, not an animal reduction harm philosophy. But in this case, he originally changed his diet to reduce animal deaths, but then he made the further animal product reductions just for health, it seems. And he could be seen occasionally mentioning animals and even the environment in a vegan context.
There are clear ethical reasons to be vegan in that it takes you out of the exploitation of animals. But that documentary, What the Health, that I watched was like, you know, and I've been vegetarian for years, and this, like, and I've gone back and forth to veganism because I feel, God, Jesus Christ, man, there's enough things in my life I'm not doing without not being able to have an egg without feeling guilty.
But again, those seem a little bit secondary, but he also had the vegetarian meat things. However, I don't think you can just go and say he was a fully fake vegan. He never cared about animals with like 3 decades of not eating meat for animal ethics reasons. However, I think it's fair that somebody might just drift away from their original purpose, go vegetarian because they learned about animals, and then just keep it up as a habit and go, oh, maybe I don't care as much anymore. I don't really know what was going through his head, but a lot was definitely changing in his head because it's very clear that since COVID or so, there's been just a complete 180 in terms of his belief system, what he's talking about, and on and on. So how would we describe this shift? Well, we can look to George Monbiot, who happens to be vegan now, but back in 2014, Guardian asked him to nominate someone as the hero of the year, and he nominated Russell Brand for getting like young people who were disgruntled with politics back into politics. He at that point was left-leaning, pushing socialists, and then What the Health came out and he went vegan. So he was on one side of the aisle, and then now George Monbiot in this recent article says he doesn't even recognize Russell Brand. He's pushing all of these alt-right conspiracies, and obviously he's not vegan anymore, eating a ton of meat. In the past, he's also been into these sort of alternative spirituality practices, and then now his entire TikTok is about Christianity, pretty much. We'll get into that in a second. But this is where I have to reluctantly just talk a little bit about straight up raw politics here, and we can look to the left-leaning versus right-leaning vegan prevalence. And from this study, for example, people who are liberal or left are about 3.7 times more likely to be vegan than conservative people. Other surveys like this one put it at around 2.5 times, maybe 2 times, depending on how you delineate people. So yeah, there's vegans on both sides, but it really seems like the right-leaning side frowns upon veganism way more. There's active campaigns against these vegan alternatives. They generally reject any climate-related concern for going vegan and having a lower footprint. They're much more likely to go on keto and carnivore diets. Like, I was looking through carnivore cringe posts, and one started out with "Hello, Christ-loving carnivores." And an interesting point he made when talking about why he went vegan is he said he was sort of pressured by society, which I thought was really interesting because vegans make up like 1 or 2% of the population, depending on the country. UK is higher. But I would say now, based off his social circles, I do believe that social pressure and just wearing him down over time played a role. We can see in the past he went on shows like Joe Rogan, interviewed with Saladino, and he's like, I'm vegan. And then they go, oh, well, I disagree with you for this and this and that reason.
You're a fit guy. You're a healthy guy. If you just keep going, get off that vegan diet and keep going.
And then apparently going on Michaela Peterson's show all the time, where she's, of course, pushing that carnivore diet narrative over and over. And the influence of that side is even more evident if you rewind back to the preamble when he was talking to Michaela Peterson. Here he is.
I've, like, since the time that I've been involved with you lot, to put it in a euphemistic way, I've gone from being vegan to being like, I'm eating meat and eating meat quite a lot.
So yeah, there's a direct connection with him being socially involved in that lot, that community, and him making that lifestyle shift. And while I'm sure things happen behind the scenes, it's even just evident, again, from these different shows and interviews, going on Joe Rogan, him saying, oh, well, I saw What the Health and it made me change my diet. And then Joe Rogan immediately goes, oh, well, that's filled with completely nonsense junk science.
I watched a documentary called What the Health. Have you seen it?
It's filled with a lot of propaganda and nonsense.
Propaganda. Damn, those guys again, like the Nazis. I remember them.
They used a lot of discredited studies.
And then I guess over time, these straws broke the camel's back, to use a very non-vegan analogy, but you get the point. But I can't stop there because I just can't help but have this inkling that there is a religious component here as well. Again, like I said, his TikTok is basically a Christian TikTok. And just to reiterate how an independent article put it, quote, Russell Brand's Jesus complex is complete and fueled by right-wing conspiracy theories. So I think there might be some aspect of a religious justification here. The whole, Bible says humans were given dominion over animals, cattle, etc. We can do whatever we want, eat them if we want. And of course, I did have to cover this in my little level 5 vegan guide, talking about spiritual decision-making being one quite common thread between these ex-vegans. And I do have to say, spiritualities of all different things. I'm not trying to poo-poo on anybody's spirituality, but a lot of times spiritual decisions are simply not made using science or logic. And so it can be a reason to do anything. And this is where I want to take a quick moment to just dive into religion, because I do have to go ahead and challenge him to watch Christspiracy, which was made by the same people that made What the Health, as well as Cowspiracy, Seaspiracy, and it is now streaming for free on their website. I think if What the Health got him to go vegan, he owes it to those filmmakers to at least check out their new film. And I'm going to talk about a little bit of spoilers of it for a little bit. You can just skip ahead a few notches there if you want. But one of the main claims of the movie was that, hey, the den of thieves that Jesus mentioned in Jerusalem at the Temple Mount, where he was then crucified and later killed largely for, well, the word thieves there doesn't perhaps translate accurately It's a Greek translation, which might more accurately be interpreted as violent one. And I was like, is that really the case? So I went and did a little bit of fact checking. And yeah, that word is paritz. It's a Hebrew word. And yeah, well, sometimes it's either robber or violent one. If you look further at the root, it could even mean to split things. It could even be interpreted as a butcher. And that matters to some extent. But what also just matters is the huge amount of evidence that that Temple Mount was essentially a massive animal sacrifice slaughterhouse. And more compelling to me, a 2013 archaeological study looked at animal bones in Jerusalem. As Live Science summed it up, quote, animal sacrifice powered Jerusalem's ancient economy. And a dump dated to the time of Jesus had unusually high amounts of animal bones. And they also say, quote, some passages in the text depict priests wading up to their knees in blood, and others describe 1.2 million animals being slaughtered in a day. And the ancient Jewish historian Flavius Josephus also described an enormous slaughtering operation. You know, we have texts talking about blood just coming up to people's knees, and it's like, you know, humans weren't being killed there. So could it be, as the movie suggests, that this person known as Jesus was actually just an annoying animal rights activist, and that's part of the reason they killed him. And then much of his message there was just rewritten by meat-eating people in the future. You know, and this personally has no bearing on my decision to be vegan, but I think somebody like Russell Brand would be interested to know this point of view. And last point I'll say about the movie, it goes into a lot more than that. It goes into Buddhism, it goes into Hinduism paradoxes, and on and on. But I just want to say, like, since he hasn't responded, I like to envision or even predict what his actual explanation for why he quit eating a vegan diet is. I've gotten a lot of frenzied hatred from the dogmatic vegans, and I thought it would be fine to eat animals since the Bible says they were put here on Earth for humans, and from Genesis 1:26, we have dominion over them. I also heard some fantastic stories from carnivore dieters, and thought, like Paul Saladino and Michaela Peterson, I gotta try eating a ton of meat. So I have been eating steak, which they say kills less animals than harvesting soy, and bloody vegans are often relying on processed foods, and getting nutrients is hard, even though I never got a blood test or anything. It's not that I don't care about animals anymore, I just no longer care about animals enough not to eat them. I know my Russell Brand British accent just got worse and worse there. Maybe it would have been a good opportunity for a little deep fake video, but I probably shouldn't put those out. And another issue I see here with Russell Brand is that, you know, well, it's okay to not have some super science education and background. You know, he has a situation where he went to an arts college, got expelled, you know, he's had drug issues, etc. I just don't think that he has a good foundation in scientific knowledge. No, I don't think that's something that anybody should be ashamed of. I think we should strive to have more scientific literacy. And it's a red flag that he didn't know what epidemiology was. In that Joe Rogan interview, Joe went on to pull up the definition because he couldn't explain it.
They used a lot of discredited studies, and there's a lot of epidemiology studies that'll connect things. That
epidemiology, what does that mean? Like an epidemic?
Well, we could pull up what the actual.
It's about time Jamie pulled something up in this episode.
But it is a case for somebody like him, when they hear an anecdote, they might weigh it in their head to the same degree that a meta-analysis is, which is just really not how we should be operating. So when processed and red meat are class 1A and 2A carcinogens, and vegans, for example, from this meta-analysis have 15% lower cancer risk, and we can see from Adventist studies that they have like 70% lower diabetes risk, they average normal BMI, on and on, all of these scientifically validated ways that a vegan diet is healthier. You know, he heard that message, he went vegan, and that was cool. He seemed to do fine in terms of health. I didn't hear him complaining. Who knows, maybe he'll have some post hoc complaints about his health. Everyone feels tired on every diet, so, you know, might as well say that. I guess I'm just saying that not having a scientific background makes you more vulnerable to, say, an anecdote from Michaela Peterson that she reversed her arthritis or something. And also, perhaps, what products you sell. And this brings me to how, you know, researching Russell Brand a lot, one word came up quite a bit, and that was grifter. You know, it's concerning when Wired has an entire article about you and your dark economics. But yeah, to a particular example, here is a video of him selling this like anti-corruption energy necklace.
Get one as well, particularly if you're planning to go to an airport anytime soon, because the bloody things are full of lethal signals. AirTech, a glorious amulet
to protect you from corrupting signals.
And this is where I think it all fits together. Not only can he maybe make more money this way, I don't know if he can make more money this way, but we have this full picture of him, not being super scientifically literate and going down this pipeline of conspiracy theories, promoting these weird, non-scientifically validated, really pseudo-scientific products. And then against the scientific literature, going and eating a bunch of meat, which, there's no large-scale study that says eat a bunch of meat is good. And then the last topic I want to touch on here, which really doesn't feel necessary, but I'm like, why not talk about how I met him and also how he has at least 4 sexual assault allegations against him. And
Graced former comedian and Hollywood star Russell Brand has spent years peddling conspiracy theories on YouTube. And just last year, he was accused of rape, sexual assault, and emotional abuse by 4 women, one of whom was as young as 16 at the time. Those are accusations that Brand denies.
And people are saying that could have played a role in his shift in philosophy, where he was accused of that, and he said, no, it's just like the deep state coming for me.
And since then, he's been baptized by Bear Grylls in an attempt to rebrand himself as a born-again Christian, although he might be Catholic because he's uploaded videos where he's praying the rosary.
And while these are just allegations, I did meet him maybe a decade or more ago back. He probably doesn't remember me. No, I was at a party and I have a friend who, maybe wasn't comfortable with guys kissing him, and Russell picked up on that, and then he made it his mission to try and non-consensually kiss my friend, who was a guy, because he thought it was funny. There were several witnesses from that night, and every once in a while me and my friends talk about it and be like, oh, that was weird, but everyone's like, oh, he's just a comedian and he's famous, like whatever. And the other allegations are, of course, much more serious. So yeah, in the end here, we don't have that much information to go on.
That veganism stuff's for the birds, though. Sorry, vegan people.
We just have this trail of breadcrumbs that leads directly from a Joe Rogan interview to eating steak in Mar-a-Lago, in my humble opinion. Also, his main platform appears to be Twitter or X, or whatever you want to call it. He has 10 million followers there, and I have to say, the information that he's been exposed to on there has likely also shifted since Elon Musk bought it. I know my brother hopped back on Twitter after a long hiatus, and one of the first posts he saw was, scientific study shows why black people are less intelligent, and he was getting just shoved down this weird, like, white supremacist, alt-right pipeline very quickly, just a completely different algorithm. Did that play a role, or was it just interpersonal stuff with people like Rogan and Michaela Peterson and Saladino? I don't know. If anything, the story of Russell Brand is just a story of how wildly one's perspective and beliefs can change in such a short period of time. Again, 2021 UK vegan campout headliner to eating steaks at Mar-a-Lago. I don't know. I don't have an explanation for it. So yeah, there'll probably be a part 2 once he comes out with his official reasons for why he's no longer vegan. I see people asking for it under his TikTok, so maybe he will, maybe he won't. Either way, let me know down below what you think about this, if there are any details I missed or have come out since posting this. And in the spirit of being YouTuber-y, feel free to obliterate the like button and also hit the notification bell. I think I saw out of my 400,000 subscribers, like 200 people came to my last video through notification bells. So remember to hit that if you want to. If you want to see my videos, why not? All right, that's all for today. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.